Welcome to podcast number 2, Everything Manchester United. We've got Ryan here from In the Red. How you doing, Ryan?
Yeah, well, I was going to say, yeah, doing really good, but it's hard to say I'm doing really good after yesterday. So I'm
It's a
doing
standard answer. Like you've just been
yeah,
shot and you're like, I'm fine, I'm great. And it's like a standand answer. It's like, actually, I'm not. United have just lost 5-0 to Liverpool.
yeah, as good as can be
It
expected.
feels horrendous, doesn't it? Did you
Yeah,
actually enjoy the game? Any part of the game yesterday?
and I enjoyed the final whistle.
Yeah,
That was
yeah,
about
that
it. Yeah,
was it. Yeah.
but
In fact, the only positive was actually the fact that it was quite easy to make your way out of the stadium because everyone had left.
yeah,
So
there was no.
losing 5-0, it was like a nice walk. Normally, it's horrible.
Yeah, it was easy. Yeah, it was easy to get out, and you don't have to wait around too long. Yeah,
Go to
people cleared the way for us at about 65 minutes.
yeah.
It was
There's
fine.
about 35,000 fans by the end.
I've
But
never
yeah,
seen
it
anything
was
like it. Like there was some camera footage that came out. I'm assuming it was being filmed from Hotel Football. You know, with
the
on the
drone
yeah, like the there's like footage
aerial
of
shot.
the front of Old Trafford on Matt Busby
Yeah,
Way, and there's just thousands of people leaving, and it's still light outside. So the game didn't kick off till 4:30. It gets dark about 5:30, 6 o'clock. So that they must have been leaving on 60 minutes and
yeah, man.
50 minutes as soon as that fifth goal went in just after half time. Thousands of people leaving. I've never seen anything like that before.
No,
Not even under Van Gaal.
yeah. Everyone, yeah. Van Gaal, they often criticize Van Gaal. So yeah. So are we thinking that Ollie's done? He's a goner.
I think so. Yeah, I think. I mean, I was speaking to someone last night about this. I'll never call for Ollie to be sacked.
Yeah,
Like
definitely.
someone was saying, what does he need to do for you to be Ollie out? And I'm never going to be Ollie out. I'm never going to call for Ollie to be sacked. He's too much of a legend. He's like there's too much faith in the bank for me for what he did as a player and for what he's done as a manager as well. The things that people overlook. I'm never going to call for him to be sacked. But I think it has got to the point where I've sort of resigned myself to the idea that I think he's done. I think it's finished. I do think so. Yeah. What about
You
yourself?
think, well, I wouldn't sack him. I'd
Yeah.
keep him for another 18 months and back him. I think that the problems, as we've discussed a number of times, are at an organizational level for United.
Yeah.
I don't. I think the narrative around football managers is a little bit misleading. Football manager is a very important person in a football club, but they succeed or fail in line with the ambition and the organization of a club. And if you look at, say, Guardiola as the obvious example, he's obviously an exceptional football manager, but he's very cleverly and very wisely with his advisors chosen jobs with organizations that have backed him fully. And City are that on steroids. The whole of the club is designed to find elite players that play in his style of play and to give him what he wants. And as a result, his chances of success increase considerably. Since the Glazers have taken over, Sir Alex Ferguson was successful in spite of the Glazers, not because of the Glazers. And then since Sir Alex went, and actually, Sir Alex went when the class of '92 were retiring. He wasn't stupid. He understood what was happening. And since he's gone, all those managers have allegedly failed. And yeah, on the surface, they've failed, but they've been failed by the organization. And we've been failed as United fans by Glazier ownership. Because it's like this, right? Your expectations in life and your actions in life have to match each other. If United want to be the best team in England, they need to be probably the best club in Europe. And in order to do that, your actions in the transfer market and the infrastructure and the scouting and the director of football and all these things and your data analyst team have to be in line with being an elite club. And they're not. So our expectations, me and your expectations, are from a time when United were number one. But those expectations and the actions of the Glaziers contradict one another. So
Yeah.
therein is the issue.
I think Mark Ogden from ESPN wrote an article today where he was
He
talking
must
about.
have stole it off me then, because that's.
Well, well, the
I
thing is,
read his article this morning.
I think he's agreeing. He's agreeing with you on in the article. He definitely agrees with you on the Glazers, where he says that the mediocrity at Manchester United it's above Solskjaer. It's
Hmm.
it's because of the Glazers and the type of the way that they run the club, etc. But I think in the article he also categorizes Solskjaer as a mediocre manager who is a part of that mediocrity that the Glazers have created. So
Yeah, I
he's
didn't
made
agree with that either.
he says that the reason they're keeping Solskjaer in the job because it doesn't matter if a manager is mediocre, and it's like what you were saying the other day about how if Solskjaer gets top four, then the Glazers will keep him in a job because they don't take a financial hit if United finish fourth, whereas they do take a financial hit if they finish fifth because they don't get the Champions League money. But that's the kind of mediocrity that the Glazers are fine with, are completely okay with. It's it's the financial issues that they've got a problem with. But I don't know. I also think that especially Ed Woodward anyway. When you see Woodward's calls to invest to the investors, or when you see his calls at board meetings and things like that, the thing he always talks about is online content and engagement that people have with the club online. And I think when the reason I've sort of resigned myself to it being over is it's to do with like the appearance and the PR of it, especially online. Like I think the issue of Solskjaer managing United has become such a toxic issue now that I think since that loss yesterday, we're starting to see things in the media and in the press that are indications of what it's gone past the point of a return now. I think, like I'll just show you some of these things that have been I've just noticed in the press today that this morning Paul Hurst from the Times was showing that the players have started to lose faith in all his tactics. A lot of you saw the video of Ronaldo yesterday waving his hands all around when one of the Liverpool goals went in, and people just assumed that was a criticism of all his tactics. But Paul Hurst is saying that some of the players have got criticisms of Ole. They don't think that his coaching staff's up to scratch. The Manchester Evening News as well did an article today where they were talking about certain players, like unnamed players, don't understand why Jesse Lingard isn't getting playing time when he has such an impact when he plays on the pitch. The issue of Donny van der Beek, apparently, we were saying the other day, Donny must be terrible in training. According to Samuel Luckhurst, players are saying that apparently Donny van der Beek's really good in training. It baffles them a little bit why he isn't playing. And then Jamie Jackson, who's the Manchester United correspondent for The Guardian, he writes articles with Fabrizio Romano, who's the real tier one trusted journalist when it comes to reporting what's going on behind the scenes at clubs. He echoed a lot of the things that were already being reported. He said they were saying that players are questioning whether Solskjaer has the tactical nous to take the club any further. And I just think when these kinds of stories come out, it's
ominous, isn't it?
Especially when it's such a similar story and so many other journalists are reporting on the same thing. It's quite apparent that obviously the PR teams of the players have started briefing journalists straight away, to sort of distance themselves from what's becoming quite a toxic environment around the manager. So if the players are briefing journalists that they're also unhappy, like the fans are unhappy, I think that type of situation, I think it's past the point of no return. And also in the article that Jamie Jackson and Romano wrote, they mentioned about how Antonio Conte is up for managing Manchester United around a similar time that Luckhurst in the MEN was reporting the same thing. Conte is open to joining United. And then this afternoon, Gianluigi Longari from Sport Italia is reporting that United is the first choice for Conte should United be interested in taking his services. And then Luckhurst, following that at about 3:00, is now reporting that United are considering sacking Ole. And when Samuel Luckhurst tweeted this and put it out in the Manchester Evening News, Romano and Jamie Jackson added an extra bit to their article on Twitter that Richard Arnold has cancelled all of his appointments for today to hold emergency meetings with Joel Glazer. So I think when the media is reporting that to such an extent, and it certainly looks like a brief from players, from sources inside the club, and I think as much as we were saying yesterday, as much as there's mitigating circumstances for why the club's doing badly, and it's not all all these inept coach like a lot of TalkSport pundits would lead you to believe. I do think that there's such an emphasis on how things look to the outside that I think losing 5-0 at home to Liverpool in a period where there's such a toxic environment online around you anyway, I just think that the writing seems to be on the wall. I think, and as I was saying before, as much as I'll never call for Ollie's head, it does seem like Laurie Whitwell, who's the Athletics Manchester United correspondent, also put a tweet out saying it feels like the end game now, or the end times. So I don't know. I don't see how you can pull back from this, or how Ollie can pull back from this, or how the narrative surrounding him online can.
You've spoken to me a few times about the age of the spectacle, and you've quoted a book a few times, and I think it'd be interesting just to speak about that for a brief amount of time. I know it veers off into politics a little bit, but I think it's interesting because I think that perception management is well and truly in number 10 Downing Street at the moment.
Yeah, especially. I think not to go veering off into a big political podcast,
but yeah, the Glaziers come from that same school.
Exactly.
Of management of PR, don't they?
Yeah, it's much. It can sometimes be much more efficient to manage how something appears than how it is.
Manage how it is, the reality.
Yeah, exactly. So, it's much easier to. There's that quote I mentioned the other day, about it's a Mark Twain quote, I think, where he says, "A lie can make itself around the world before the truth has managed to put its boots on." And I think sometimes, if you can manage the narrative, you don't really need to fix the issue, because the narrative's everything. The way something is perceived is always all there is. There's only the spectacle. So I think, regardless of whether there's mitigating circumstances, regardless of whether misrepresentations of the facts exist, but regardless of all that, it doesn't really matter. Like, so long as the majority of people believe a certain thing to be true,
right? If
it's more difficult to prove otherwise, then just move on. I think people will move on, and I think that's.
So did for example, the majority of people in the UK believe that Jeremy Corbyn was a terrorist sympathizer?
Yeah, things like that, and it's funny really, because I noticed the thing today. Laura Kuenssberg's she's resigning as the BBC political correspondent. But someone showed this interview she did of Jeremy Corbyn about 2 years ago, where she's,
as opposed to the one with Boris Johnson.
Yeah, but they're interviewing him in Brighton or somewhere that appear. I'm not sure where it was, but the interview has really dull lighting, and it really the quality of the video is quite bad. The backdrop behind Jeremy Corbyn has got this like dilapidated pier or something like that, and but the studio they were in was a temporary studio that they only used once, just for that particular interview. So it painted Corbyn literally in a bad light. So when people were thinking of the well lit, animated, friendly banter interview that she did with Boris Johnson, and then they think of the dark, dull, awkward conversation interview she did with Jeremy Corbyn, even though, I mean, it might sound far-fetched and conspiratorial to say that these type of things are intentional, but they are, because
subconscious, on a subconscious level.
Yeah, exactly. These things are important, and there's a reason why, not to veer off into politics, but there's a reason why Dominic Cummings was so successful with the Conservative Party and the Brexit campaign, is because he knows that and understands that. He even says it all the time. He always recommends this book, Super Forecasters, and it's about managing the public perceptions of the facts rather than the facts themselves. You don't need to tell people the truth. You just have to give people a version of the truth that
Yeah.
that appeals to them a little bit more. Yeah, and I think that's the thing with football, or with anything really, anything that relies on PR management, or how you are perceived, especially online. I think there comes a point where it's too difficult to stand there trying to correct all the misrepresentations of the facts, and sometimes it makes more sense to just have a clean break from it and start over again. And I think that's unfortunately what's happened. I think people have come to realize that regardless of the mitigating circumstances of Ollie, there's no way back now. It's too toxic, I think, in my opinion anyway.
So, okay, let's assume that Solskjaer's sacked in the next 48 hours. Who replaces him and why?
Well, I think according to, it looks like the briefs that are going out in the press to people close to the club, it looks like Antonio Conte is the first choice, which, I don't know. I don't think he's the right fit. I think he's quite short-termist. He plays a tactical formation that United may have the players for, but it might sacrifice some of the more important players. He never plays with a 10, so it would be difficult for Bruno to fit into that. Exactly. He doesn't play with wide wingers. He plays with wing backs. United haven't got any wing backs. They've got a left back who's good at going forward, but isn't really a wing back. Tellez might be a okay wing back, but then you've got to sacrifice your best left back to play him. Aaron Wan-Bissaka is a defensive fullback, so he'd probably play Dalot there, who hasn't proven that is good enough for Man United. I don't know. I think it would. I mean, it could be. I could be wrong. It could be amazing. Conte could come in and really, stamp his authority on the club and everything. But it looks like he'd come in. We'd get to January and he'd want to spend 150 million on four players for the team, and I don't think that's going to happen the January after a summer where you've bought Varane and Sancho and you're paying Ronaldo 400 odd grand a week. I don't think he's the right fit, but he looks like the person that the club are going for. He looks like the easiest manager to recruit at this moment in time.
You don't have to get him out of a club, pay compensation. Yeah. He'll probably come. He's won the Premier League. He has won where he's gone. And so who would you get then?
I don't know. I mean, we were saying the other day that I think one of the reasons why Ole hasn't, not that one of the reasons why he hasn't already been sacked, but I think there would certainly be there would certainly be evidence that the club was speaking to other managers already if there was an obvious choice to replace him. Like when Van Gaal won the FA Cup, they got Mourinho anyway, but that was because a manager of Mourinho's caliber was available. I think if Pochettino was still available, I think the news would be breaking today that Pochettino was going to be the United manager. I just think maybe the club are hesitant in hiring Conte. Maybe they're hesitant in hiring someone like Zidane, or maybe Zidane doesn't even want to manage in the Premier League. I think there not being a manager available complicates it a little bit. But as you said yesterday, it's Manchester United. They can go and take 99% of other clubs' managers if they wanted to. But then the Glazers have got to put their hands in the pocket for a compensation package.
Yeah, because I feel like the modern manager has a discussion that's a lot different than, say, 20 years ago. They basically get assurances about transfer budget, about players, about power. And I think a lot of the top managers turn down jobs because if they don't get what they want, they don't take the job. And I think that one of the reasons why Klopp probably didn't come to United was he knew that he wouldn't have the power to actually do what he wanted to do, nor the time. And I've thought this for a long time, that in a way, the Glaziers were unhappy at how much power Sir Alex had, because basically he had more power than them. And what they wanted to do is they wanted to wrestle power and control from him. And I believe that one of the things they did, and you'd have to obviously go inside of Ferguson's mind to see whether this is an issue, is Raiola and Pogba. Ferguson specifically had a problem with him, and they brought Pogba back and dealt with Raiola. They then bought Mkhitaryan, who was a Raiola client. They also bought Zlatan, who was a Raiola client, and someone that Ferguson had publicly said I wouldn't deal with, at all. They dealt with, and I think that managers look at United, they look at the club and think, wow, but they also can tell the top managers wouldn't come to United. Guardiola, in my view, wouldn't take a job like United with the Glazier ownership, because it's not just about money. It's about the infrastructure in place behind the club. Like, it's about, like, for example, right, why did we even hire Solskjaer? Right, it's not enough time to cleanse the squad. Right, if we bought two holding midfield players or a holding midfield player, if we bought Rice and I don't know, a De Jong or a Verratti or someone of top caliber, and the whole team and squad was finished, and for a season he failed, I'd probably say get rid of him. But you don't. You have a completely imbalanced squad. If you take the number 10 position as a non-midfield position and as an attacking position, United have about 11, 12, 13 players to go into 5 positions. Not youth players, like 11 or 12 internationals. Martial's not even getting a sniff. Yet you've got 3 players into 2 positions in the base of the diamond at 6 and 8. The squad's imbalanced, and United have needed a central midfielder who can pass the ball for actually many years. They had Herrera, he wasn't a ball player. They had Fellaini, he wasn't a ball player. Carrick was the last one, and he retired ages ago. So your squad is fundamentally unbalanced. And yet people expect, like the owners expect United to be up there. Do United have a better squad than City, Chelsea, or Liverpool? No way. They don't. They have some individual players that are better, but they don't have a better overall team. So United have got probably the 4th best team in the league. So, like, the notion of Ollie's doing badly, like, he overachieved finishing second. Some other teams dropped off, like Liverpool, and United played like a pretty good season and just fell away at the end because that's their level. Yeah. But in terms of like Solskjaer being sacked, it's a nonsense. Now, someone may come in, and a broken clock can be, with what is right twice a day, but someone can come in and potentially win a big trophy, but consistently succeeding at Manchester United is impossible with the Glazers. So for me, I don't see the need for the change. I really don't. But I completely agree with your perception management point.
Yeah, I think. I mean, even while we're talking now, Chris Wheeler from the Daily Mail and James Ducker from the Telegraph have both put out the same thing, that players have lost faith in Solskjaer's tactical ability, and that the club are in touch with Antonio Conte's agent and team.
How was Ferguson so successful, right? The one reason United weren't the highest spending club, right, over that period, especially when the Glazers came. United were like spending net about 20 million quid. We sold Ronaldo for 80 million quid, and then they spent 19 million pounds. You got an Obertan, Michael Owen on a free, and Valencia. I don't know if they were all in the same summer. And then you had United, he had a core of players, but the reason why he was so successful is because he had power. And United should be very, very, very scared if Klopp or Guardiola both decide to stay at City and Liverpool for a long time, not because of the financial aspect, but because when you've got that power, you're able to implement ideas. United's players can down tools, right? And they'll continue. Under Fergie, you couldn't down tools. Basically, you were gone. Van Nistelrooy is probably one of the greatest goal scorers in the Premier League, probably one of Man United's greatest goal scorers, right? Gone, done. He's over, finished. Jaap Stam, arguably the greatest defender to play for United, top 3 anyway. Won the Champions League. Unbelievable world-class defender. Done. You're gone. So if you wanted to get out of United, just have an issue with Ferguson, and you're done. So the players that wanted to play there and who were asked to move positions, to run harder, to work harder.
I think
They did that because they wanted to play for United and be successful. So power is important, and United have got too much player power. Are you telling me, and this veers off topic a little bit, are you telling me that Ferguson would have tolerated Raiola? He didn't tolerate him.
he
What
said
the
he said
first time,
him and
first
Raiola were
time
like
that,
oil and water, didn't he?
yeah, oil and
That's what he
water,
said.
exactly, the famous quote. The first time that Pogba went on French duty and said anything, he would have been out,
Yeah,
would have been finished. The first, like, so this notion, because technically that means that players are running the club,
yeah,
and the players are self-interested. Not all of them are, but like Rashford's a United fan, Lingard's a United fan, but most of them aren't United fans.
I think this is the
And
thing. Sorry to cut him.
no,
What
no,
I
man,
think
go for it.
I think what you're saying is part of the issue that Ollie's got. I saw Gary Neville and Graham Souness arguing on Sky Sports yesterday, and even though Graham Souness talks, some nonsense sometimes, and he has huge agendas against
Most of the
United.
time,
Yeah,
actually,
and he
yeah.
was and he was more just gloating about about Liverpool, beating United, but he was kind of also making a point against Gary Neville, which Gary Neville wasn't really dealing with the point that Souness was
What was
trying to
the
make.
point exactly?
Well, he was saying that Graham Souness was saying that you cannot press with Ronaldo in your team up front, because you can't have a few players press. You need to always press as a team. You can't just have a few individuals press, which is correct. And Gary Neville was saying that you don't have to be a pressing team. Conte isn't a pressing manager. Like, you don't always have to be this high pressing, energetic team to win games. Like Thomas Tuchel isn't a massive high pressing manager either, and he won the Champions League last season. But the point stands that United have had to change the way they play from last season by having to find a place for Ronaldo in the team. And I know that Ronaldo scores last minute goals and he brings goals to your team. No doubt Ronaldo will score 20, 25 goals this season. But the way that when United's options didn't have Ronaldo in them, Ollie would be able to go into a game against City or Liverpool or, in Chelsea in a few weeks, and he'd be able to stick three at the back, and he'd be able to play an aggressive style of football, and he'd have runners like Rashford, Dan James, Martial up the top to really break whenever the team make a mistake always and get a goal out of it and win the game 2-1 or 1-0 or whatever. But when you've got Ronaldo in your team and you have these kinds of players, you can't do that because Ronaldo's not going to press and he's not going to run around too much off the ball either. So Ole is now being forced to play in a way that he's not comfortable playing because he spent 2 years building a squad that can play the way that he envisages United should be playing. And now he's got players in the team that he needs to find a place for, like Ronaldo. And because Pogba's in the last year of his contract, he's also got to find a place for him or he's going to leave for free. So Solskjaer's now
Why
got
though? Why though? Like, it comes back to the same point.
No, this
man.
is what
It
I'm
comes-
saying. It is an issue of player power, but it's also an issue of the ineptitude of the United board for putting Solskjaer in this position anyway. He's now got I don't think so. I mean, when Ronaldo is available, if you can get Ronaldo, you'll get Ronaldo. But if you're still in this period where you're just putting the finishing touches to a team that can then challenge, if United played with Cavani as a centre forward, for instance, and then they played with Sancho and Rashford and Bruno, that would be a much more balanced front line than the one they're having to find now with Ronaldo. So as much as Gary Neville was right, you don't have to be a pressing team. I think Souness is also right in that Ronaldo has made that attack disjointed, even though he gets the odd goal.
Do you know what? I actually think that this is actually one of my criticisms of Solskjaer. I wouldn't sack him, but I have got a criticism, and that is you basically have three choices. You can be like a low block, you can be like a medium block, or you can press, but you can't do a hybrid of the two. You can't a little bit of press, a little bit of low block, because you get passed through. And actually, that Liverpool demolition has been coming Like that's been coming. Leicester almost did it to us.
He was almost playing at the Leicester game a 4-2-4.
Yeah,
And
4-2-4 away from home.
and in the Atalanta first half, he was doing the same thing, right? And you end up conceding. But luckily, as you were saying before the game, Atalanta are a really like open, aggressive team. They play quite similar to Leeds, so that's ideal for United to get back into a game. But when you play a 4-2-4, which it was at times, because Bruno is a second striker, the way he plays, he's like he almost plays as a centre forward nearly the whole match. But I've never seen such. Well, it wasn't like this last season, and it wasn't like that season before. But this season, it's like all of the criticisms that Ollie's had, unfairly, in my opinion, about him being, nowhere near it in terms of tactical ability in the past. He's got no tactics. There are arguments that, it's all vibes and moments and things on individual players. But this season, in the last 3 or 4 games, I don't know whether it's because Ronaldo's I don't know whether it's because Ronaldo's in the team or what he's trying to do, or whether it's imbalanced or what. But I have never seen, and you see this more when you're at the game, I've never seen such gaps and space between the midfield and the defense, and the midfield and the attack.
It's oceans of space, isn't it? It's like
4 players
yards of space.
and a gulf, then McFred, and then a gulf, and then 4 players up front. And
well, you know why that is, right? You know why that is? Because Maguire's a top defender. If you get Varane next to him, it'll help, but we don't have the pace at the back. So therefore, the back line drops off 10 yards. The forward line doesn't press. And then you've got this massive gap in the middle of the actual pitch. To be honest with you, with these players, I bet you Mourinho, in a proper shithousery way, would win, because this squad is the best squad since Sir Alex. It's unbalanced, but it's about 1 or 2 midfielders away from being a top draw squad. However, I think that we'll never know this, but this is what I'm going to assume, and this is my assumption, that United look at players like Pogba and they see them the same way that a property tycoon sees a building. They've paid 89 million for it, and this building that they paid 89 million quid for is going to be zero. They're going to leave them. So basically, Pogba is an asset that they want to sign up. And on a footballing basis, you can only really play Pogba or Bruno. If you're going to play 4-3-3 and play with width, you can't play Pogba on the left. Okay, you can drop him in here and there. And so therefore, he's been shoehorned into the team. Who bought Ronaldo? Yeah, you had to buy him. He's got whatever, hundreds of millions of people on Instagram and all that. He's a Glazier's wet dream, right? So they buy him. But football's a team game. Now, Ronaldo and Pogba are both world-class players. But if you don't play them in the right team structure, with the right tactics and with the right runners, then you're in trouble. Look at Paris Saint-Germain's team now. They bought Wijnaldum, right? But who do they have in midfield at the moment? And who will be in midfield all season? It's Idrissa Gueye and it's Ander Herrera, 2 shithousery players, because they've got 3 forwards who are not going to do anything. So Herrera, as we know, is a tactical genius. That guy's going to be a top manager. I'll take a bet on it now. He basically used to direct United, and the fact United let him go was just a symptom of how crap the club is run. And then Idrissa Gueye was top drawer at Everton. He was one of the best holding midfield players in the Premier League, and he's top class. And those 2 players are set up to give a foundation for Neymar and Messi and Mbappe to go and create. And as a result, even PSG may be imbalanced, but United don't have the players, or maybe Ollie's under pressure to play certain players. And that comes back to my PowerPoint. A manager at the club, like if Guardiola, right, can put Sergio Aguero, City's greatest ever player, on the bench for 18 months, that shows who's in control. Raheem Sterling has just smashed it at the Euros. he wants to leave. Guardiola shrugs his shoulders and says, all right, then, I'm not guaranteeing playing time to anyone, right? When Klopp went to Liverpool, Mamadou Sakho was their best defender. He turned up late. Klopp jettisoned him. Get out. And who've they got? They've got hungry players who work hard, who because if they don't, they're finished.
Yeah.
They're done for. And it's not just the money. And you can say City have got all this money, but like City are a much better run club. And no player at City is bigger than Guardiola. Every single player is expendable because his power and his authority can't be challenged. And as a result, he can play six, he can play a false nine, he can play.
I think that's also helped by the fact, though, that Pep Guardiola is bigger than City.
No, like, yeah, of course he is. But yeah, he is. But like Klopp's not bigger than Liverpool. The point is that the club either is 100% behind the manager or they're not. And players are not stupid. They know that. The players got Mourinho sacked.
Well,
right?
this is why I'm thinking that it's now got too toxic.
Yeah, you're right, man. I agree with you completely.
Because the players' PR teams and the players' representatives, etc., are briefing
I hate
football
that,
journals.
man. I hate that shit.
Yeah,
it's awful because what it means is that the next manager comes in, you don't like his face, you're down tools. The form that United had in that January after Mourinho went and Ole came showed you the level of the players. They were in championship form. They just didn't do it for the whole season. They're in championship form for 6 months. So what does that tell you? Like,
this is another thing that I think is a. I think there are fair criticisms of. I mean, you can't be in the patch that United are in now, and not have the manager, be responsible for large parts of it. And I think as much as we were saying before, as much as there are mitigating circumstances for the issues that Ole's faced at United, I also think that there's some fair criticisms that you could like we were saying the other day about. I don't think he's tactically flexible enough. I think he tries to.
Can I interrupt? Apologies for my rudeness and ask you one question. Right, finished second last season. The implication that he's not good enough means that someone can come with those players and finish above second.
And I think someone will come. I think someone will come and buy a defensive midfielder and challenge for the league, though. Because I think I think the problem that Ole faces that a new manager won't face is the toxicity that already surrounds it. I think, when they talk about a new manager bounce, I also think the players are affected by the negativity around the club as well. I think,
but they're creating the negativity.
Yeah, of course they are.
Because by being egotistical and coming out, also like United's running stats.
Yeah,
right. Let's talk about United's running stats. That's not on Solskjaer.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, that's shit.
They're lazy, right? They're lazy, privileged, and they don't want to take responsibility.
But I think
and for me, right? Okay, sack Solskjaer, get rid of him, but until you have a manager or a director of football or some type of bureaucracy in place that's bigger than the players, you're done for.
Yeah,
you're finished. Because for example, let's say in your job or my job, we don't like the manager, and we know that if our productivity goes down for 6 weeks, we can get him sacked and we get someone else that we like him. We do it. If we've all worked in jobs with people who we hate. If we had that power, but we don't. And these players have got too much power.
Yeah, without a doubt. But I think the one thing that Ferguson, I know you shouldn't really compare anyone to Ferguson because he was like a genius. But I think the one thing that Ferguson was able to do, and I think some other managers are able to do it, that the thing with Solskjaer is when he had the interim period, when he went on, I think it was like 10 wins in 12 games and 2 draws when he first came. That was like the most successful start to any new Premier League manager in the history of the Premier League. Like no new manager had ever had such a great start than Solskjaer. So everyone says, he got the job because he won in Paris. Like, that's nonsense. He got the job full time because he won 10 out of 12 matches when he first started. You can't really say to someone, when they go on that run, that they don't deserve a deal. And they maybe should have stayed till the end of the season, or waited till the end of the season to figure it out. But when someone wins 10 out of 12 of their first games, that's why he got the contract, not just because of Paris. But one thing that I would say it could be a fair criticism is when he went on that big run, and then United players got tired and a lot of them got injured. And I remember that game against Liverpool when United got 3 injuries in the first half, like Jesse Lingard and a few others. I think when those players that were part of that quite rigid system that he was playing got injured, the form fell off a cliff. I think last season, United finished second, but they almost didn't, because when Harry Maguire got injured at the end of the season, the form fell off a cliff and they lost in the Europa League final. And I think this season, because he's having to shoehorn Pogba, or because of his contract, or Ronaldo because it's Ronaldo, and all these into his team, the form's falling off a cliff again. And I think that is part of the same criticism of him lacking tactical flexibility. He has this specific way that he wants United to play, and when he has the personnel to do it, United can batter anyone. They can blast teams away. But when he doesn't,
that's not on him though, is it?
No, it's not on him. But I just think another manager,
on the club's budget, because
Ferguson was able to switch up the way that he played. Like, you see games where Ferguson plays Park Ji-sung as like a defensive midfielder, or he'll play. There was a game when he was playing Raphael as a central midfielder or a defensive midfielder.
Question for you, man. Question for you. Let's assume Ferguson's 15, 20 years younger and he's managing United now with City in the Premier League. Do you think he wins the league?
I don't know. Who knows? But we've said this before. The top 3 in the Premier League are probably 3 of the top 4 teams in Europe. So Solskjaer's not only facing an improved top 4.
Yeah, exactly.
He's facing the 3 of the best teams in Europe. One of them's a Champions League winner. The other one's a Champions League finalist, and the other one won the Champions League the season before. So,
yeah, exactly.
And was in the final the year before that. So, like, statistically, City, Chelsea, and Liverpool are probably the 3 best teams in Europe, or the 4 best teams along with Bayern. So
yeah,
that's the competition in the Premier League now. It's not like, before when he'd be facing, whoever's the runner-up in the Ferguson would be facing Ancelotti's Chelsea, who were good, but not, they weren't, you know what I'm saying? Like, they weren't at the level. They weren't at the level they're at now. Like, it'd be the equivalent of Fergie being in the Premier League at a time when Pep's Barca and Zidane's Real Madrid were also in the Premier League.
Everything's comparable though. So, like, some of the circumstances have changed. Number one, clubs in mid-table are richer. So for you to go and pick up their players, which United haven't really had much luck with foreign players. Obviously, Cantona famously, but like United really, over those decades of success, did very well by picking up British players, the best Irish players, the best England players, and they were able to go to clubs even like Tottenham, like City, with some of the richest owners in the world, couldn't get Harry Kane out of Tottenham. 25 years ago,
well, yeah, 15, 20 years ago, Fergie would have been able to go get Grealish, go get Rice, go get whoever. Like, but now you want Grealish, it's 100 million. You want Rice, it's 90 million. Like, so, yeah, those teams, the Aston Villas and the West Hams, don't need the money anymore. So it's like you want our best player, break the record to get him. Like,
you need to break the record, and you saw it with Wan-Bissaka. So I'm not saying Fergie's not a genius, but what I'm saying is that, like, a lot of the criticisms of Solskjaer are in a context where the landscape has changed. It's like saying that Derek Chisora is a rubbish boxer, but there's probably only 5 people in the world that could knock him out of 7 billion people. So statistically, he's number 4 out of 7 billion. So he's not a rubbish boxer, but he's not going to be the champion. He's not going to be. So it's the same thing. You can say Solskjaer's rubbish, he finished 2nd or whatever, or he might finish 5th. But, like, you're up against a state, and you're in a world where, for you to assemble a team previously, was much, much easier. And you're hamstrung because also like what qualifies the Glazers to sack Solskjaer? What footballing knowledge does Ed Woodward, Richard Arnold, and Joel Glazier have? What's their perception of football is like you and me running a rugby team. I don't know anything about rugby, but I know who Martin Fire is.
Jonah Lomu.
Yeah, Jonah Lomu. Exactly. They're probably like 50 years of age. I have no idea.
I think
And
Jonah
that's what
Lomu's
it
died,
is.
hasn't he?
Has he? Oh, rest in peace. Oh,
Yeah.
actually, he was a beast, wasn't he? But like the sort of what qualifies these people, and this is part of the issue because United, forget the debt, right? Forget Glazier ownership. If United, even under the Glaziers, had a strategy, then they wouldn't be sacking Ollie now, which we agree is probably coming inevitably. They would determine a direction and look at the squad. And like, for example, 2 weeks ago, it said the board expects United to challenge for the Premier League. I don't. I know. I like. Please, if someone can explain to me why they think that team can challenge for the Premiership, I'll expose them for knowing nothing about football because that team is dysfunctional, and it has been because it can't move the ball from the first third to the final third because the midfielders, as much as they try, aren't designed to do that. Right, so you need to go into the transfer market or get lucky in your youth system and get a number 6 and a number 8 that can pass the fucking ball because Fred and McTominay can't penetrate. Or you need to also like United play against low blocks consistently. We don't have an attacking right back. You need to go into the transfer market and buy a right back who you can rotate with Wan-Bissaka to fix that issue. You said, right, I come back to, sorry, man, I come back to this same example. Guardiola came to City, finished 5th, and they released 4 fullbacks. They didn't sell them, they released them, and they bought 3 world-class fullbacks and paid 140 million quid because, like, the director of football from Barcelona that was there, they looked and said, right, this is an issue. So they went from 5th to 1st. So that took them up a right back and a left back and a versatile right and left back. Because, so United, it doesn't require a director of football. If you were to put in that team a top draw defensive midfield player and a number 8 that can pass the ball, you would be challenging, right?
I think that was the plan, though. I think the plan going into this summer was to get Sancho and Varane, shore up the defense and finally get a right winger, but then try and get Trippier. But they thought they were going to get him on a cheap for 10 million or something. And then Atletico were like, no, you can have him for 25 million or whatever they said.
Yeah,
and I also think
obviously
a defensive midfielder was on the agenda. But then I think as soon as Woodward and the Glazers bought Ronaldo, because they're not football people, they were like, you've got Ronaldo now. That's it. You'll win the league. You've got Ronaldo in your team. Like, in the same way that PSG have got Messi. They're the best team in the world. But it pinpoints the problem with them, what you're saying before. Like, we know nothing about rugby, but we know who Jonah Lomu is or whatever. But yeah. I remember that footage of Ed Woodward when United signed Bastian Schweinsteiger, when he says to the person who's speaking to him, he goes, when you see Bastian Schweinsteiger on the team sheet before the game, that strikes fear into an opponent. But Schweinsteiger was well past it by the time he came to United.
Like injured, wasn't he?
Yeah, he was past it. He was done. Like, Bayern Munich don't sell players when they're not done. Like,
Bayern Munich saw United coming and were like, okay.
You don't get a player from Bayern Munich if he's still in form. Like, they don't sell him. Like, you will. That's why Van Gaal couldn't get Muller for. I think they were bidding all sorts of prices for him.
Stupid money, didn't they? Yeah.
Just never going to let him leave.
They just don't need to sell their players, do they?
No, and they won't sell them because they also don't need the money because they've got a monopoly on the Bundesliga. Like the equivalent of what Bayern can do is like us going to Liverpool and just taking Salah and taking Alisson and the way that they could. There's only one team that can ever really catch them in Germany, and that's Dortmund. Like,
and
then the only one that's up
decimate them every 2 or 3 years
all the time.
Yeah, they just go and take. Yeah, so, it's madness. So this is why I don't Like some manager might come and get lucky, but the club under Glazier ownership, United will never do anything. Ferguson masked over it with the class of '92. And listen, all the things I've said about Fergie doesn't. I'm not in any way suggesting that Sir Alex isn't the greatest manager of all time. What I'm
Yeah, of course.
saying is that the the club enables you to win. It's not like so this fixation on managers. It's almost like in politics, like the fixation upon leaders. It's like there's a whole civil service behind the person. There's a whole economic trend that's happening. There's a whole infrastructure that you haven't built. There's like 150 years of activity that happened before you. And it's like, oh, such and such is the problem. Like it's systematic.
It's why the experience of Brendan Rodgers at United would be a very different experience than he has at Leicester. Like at
Yeah,
Leicester,
I don't think he'll take the job.
yeah, at Leicester, there's a whole, he has this huge safety net underneath him where he's got football people speaking to players. He's got, budgets.
Are Leicester better than United in the transfer market?
Yeah, easily.
Undoubtedly.
Yeah.
Look at Daka they've just bought, and look at Boubacar Samare, and look at Fofana.
I think the argument that, there is the argument that it's different for Leicester than it is for United. United need hits with players all the time. So United don't really have the ability to invest in players who might not be a hit. Whereas Leicester can buy someone like Samare, slowly bring him into the team. Like, look what's gone on with Van der Beek. If you try and slowly bring someone into the team, you get slated, and the press are constantly talking about how it's a flop. Where I think at Leicester, you can buy 5 players, leave 2 of them in the reserves for 6 months, and no one really cares. You can't really do that at United. So there is this safety net, but also at the same time, there's a massive level of support for the manager there in terms of,
if you're winning
behind the scenes, and United just don't have that.
Yeah, absolutely. But if you're winning, Van der Beek isn't an issue. It's just something to slag you off. So, right, hypothecate. Let's say you picked up Declan Rice this summer and paid an exorbitant amount of money for him, and you picked up another, like someone else, like a ball playing 6 or an 8. United would be near the top of the league, and the reason why they don't go for Rice is because it's all about spending net 40-50 million pounds, right? This notion that the Glazers have spent a lot of money, they have spent 1.4 billion pounds on transfers in 16 years, right? They have sold about 400 million pounds worth of players. So they've basically net spent £1 billion in 16 years, right? And they've also, that doesn't take into account loan fees and the value of the players that we have now. City have spent £1 billion since Guardiola's been there. Chelsea have spent 450 million quid in the last 18 to 24 months. Everton have spent 500 million pounds in the last three and a half, 4 years. So the notion that the Glaze in isolation, paying 80 million quid for Maguire is a lot of money. But if you want to compete with these teams, then you're going to have to get 22 top players. And in terms of, I still maintain, right, that even with the Glazers in charge, if they were to cede power, because it's all about power, cede power to a proper director of football, like a Campos, they would buy the right players. Because you know what, right? Football teams are a jigsaw. They're a jigsaw that you put together, and you can buy a player who fits and who doesn't. If I said to you, when Brendan Rodgers was sacked at Liverpool, who's going to be considered world class, Firmino or Divock Origi? Right? Who's going to be seen as being one of the best number 9s in the world? You wouldn't have said Firmino, but Firmino just fits into that style of play. So that was a little bit lucky that it was there. So the question of style and the question of player recruitment has to all be pointing towards the same way. And we've still got players from the Van Gaal era, the Moyes era, that Ollie's still clearing out. And this just comes to another criticism of how the club is run. Because actually, the point you made about Ronaldo is basically correct. Like, who sat down and said, right, this season we're going to press, or we're going to be a low block, or we're going to do this? Who sat down with Solskjaer and who sat down with Ronaldo and said, this is how we're going to play? You're going to have to run 12, 15 kilometers a game. Nobody did. They saw the dollar signs. They saw the social media. They saw, as you touched on at the start of the podcast, the perception management of Ronaldo.
I think,
and it's never going to work.
Even more so with that, I think with Ronaldo, because he was in talks with City, I think there comes back to this PR management of the Glazers couldn't let United's arguably greatest ever player join City. I think this perception that there's a power shift from United to City would have gone into overdrive if City were able to go and take
it's already
United's
happened though. It's not because City put a poster, it's already happened.
No, I know, but if City were able to go and get Ronaldo, if City won the league this year, imagine like the amount of chances City create. Imagine how many goals Ronaldo would get at City. So if City were able to win the Champions League this year with Ronaldo, imagine if City's first ever Champions League was won by Ronaldo. Like the type of PR the type of negative PR and rewriting of history that would cause for Manchester United would be, it'd be shocking. And I think that played a huge part in why they went and got Ronaldo. It wasn't so much as Ronaldo's available, let's go and get him. I think it was more a case of Ronaldo's in talks with City. We cannot let that happen. So I think that had a lot more to do with it as well.
The thing is, Ronaldo's not the problem. Right?
No,
Ronaldo's not the issue.
Not.
If you bought Rice and bought De Jong or bought Verratti off, or bought, like, even if you saw someone in like a Longstaff or someone like that, I don't know. I don't scout players enough, but if you improve that midfield, Ronaldo's not the issue. The point is, and we agree on this point, that there isn't joined up thinking. This is a jigsaw. You piece it together, and sometimes you go and buy a Park Ji-sung. Sometimes you have a James Milner. Sometimes you have a Darren Fletcher.
Yeah.
So like the jigsaw gets put together, and there's no jigsaw at United, and they are the common denominator. David Moyes isn't a bad manager. He's not a bad manager. He was there for 7 months. Did he fail? No. You cannot fail in 7 months. Van Gaal spent 2 years, won the FA Cup, and he was starting to establish a style of play, and they didn't give him the players he wanted. He didn't fail. It's the club that fails. The club is going to continue to fail. So, yeah, I think Ollie's going to go, but it's not going to change. Conte may come, they might win the league, one off, this or that, but the dominance of those clubs isn't just financial, It's not true. Like, the Saudis can go to Newcastle and make a mess of it, telling you. And City, and I hate complimenting City because their owners are human rights abusers and, undemocratic. But park that to one side. Forget that they're the owners and forget that City spend a lot of money. They really have put a structure in place to increase the odds of being successful. Guardiola's going to leave in 18 months. If I was a gambling man, I assure you that City in the next decade are probably going to be the most successful team because the organisation is set up in such a way to be successful. And United are not. United buy third and fourth choice players on their list. And who's come up with that list? Like, you hear it, Richard Arnold's blocked to transfer. What qualifies? Or Joel Glazier's intervened. Like, what qualification has Joel Glazier got to actually intervene in a transfer? He doesn't. There isn't. The manager doesn't have power, and they've not gone and got a Luis Campos and said, Luis Campos, go and find us the best in class players, and we're going to play this style for the next 15 years. And he'll go, okay, then here's the best in class. Here's the new Pogba. here's the new Mbappe, here's the new Bernardo Silva. But they won't do it because they see a Varane and they go, World Cup winner, Champions League winner, and they see a Ronaldo and they see a Pogba. Well, let's re-sign Pogba. He's a fashion icon. He's just designed a pair of fucking vegan boots with Stella McCartney. And it's bollocks. I don't care. Conte's not going to do shit. We're going to be in this perpetual situation, and it's not just the debt. It's not just financial. These people, they're going to buy a cricket club. They've got.
I saw that today. Yeah, I was going to say one of the reasons why this morning, someone was reporting that the Glazers were in talks with Richard Arnold over Ollie, and some I can't remember which journalist it was. It was quite a well-known journalist commented saying the Glazers aren't in talks about Ollie at all. That at this moment in time, they're putting in a bid to buy a cricket club.
Yeah, exactly. They're like, is that a baseball team? It's like, no, it's cricket. It's a different thing. But like, and so yeah, I agree. Ollie's gone. He's 99%. He's gone. If he's not gone now, he's gone. This is a la the war in Iraq, isn't it? Like just starting to brief journalists about.
I think that's what it is. Yeah, I think more and more will come out. I think by this evening, I think most journalists that work with United, from the Athletic and the Guardian and all the United correspondents for these publications have all come out today saying the same shit all around a similar time, which makes it obvious that it's a brief.
Thing is, Ryan, like it makes me hate the players. It makes me actually hate them because I think like, you shit, don't sack him and sack them. It's like every time there's these little briefings and they've got little PR teams, like piss off.
That's the thing. They get they're trying to. I mean, even bringing up when the MEN saying that players are baffled by why Ollie doesn't play Van der Beek, even though Van der Beek's great in training. But even that itself is an indication that the players are now doing damage limitations and briefing shit that they know is a buzz issue for the fans. Like, oh, we don't understand why he doesn't play Van der Beek either. Oh, we don't understand why he's not playing Jesse either. We don't like, and it's just what else do the fans have issues with Ollie with? Let's just put out some stories that we also believe that. So I don't know, man. I do think he's gone. I don't like. Fabrizio Romano posted before that United are hesitant to take Conte because they think he's too similar to Mourinho. So maybe it won't be Conte. I'm not sure.
He probably isn't too similar to Mourinho. I think, you know what, right? I'll say this, right? Mourinho, in many ways, annoyed me. Criticizing the youth players, his general dour demeanor. But another part of me completely agrees with him. Another part of me completely understood that, like, he was saying that United's expectations and United's actions don't match up. If you want to, like, we finished second, we were like 19 points behind City, I think. Like, if you want to push on to another level, you need to go and push out in the transfer market and buy better players. And that's basically why he left. He basically got himself sacked by being such a wanker that they had to sack him, and he walked away with 30 million quid because
that's what Conte did at Chelsea.
Yeah, but the difference with Chelsea is that in the past 10 years they've had success because they buy elite players. Are you telling me that Chelsea blood Greenwood? No. Greenwood's out on loan for 2 or 3 seasons. Then they either sell him for massive money or they bring him back and he plays, right? Chelsea buy ready-made players, straight away ready-made players. There's no doubt about it. Are you telling me that the Chelsea blood McTominay? No way. He's out on loan for 3 or 4 seasons and they either bring him back if they need to fill the squad. And whilst he's out on loan, they've bought a World Cup winner or they've bought a top player. And United have a sprinkling of them. Chelsea have got a better squad than United. There's no doubt about it. And look, they bought Werner for pretty decent money. He's failed. They bought Lukaku for huge money. If he fails, they'll buy someone else. And like, to not bore you, like, I'll use example with City. Joe Hart was England's #1. Top class keeper at that point. He'd won the league with City. Guardiola came, 2 or 3 training sessions. I need my goalkeeper to play out from the back. Sorry. Drops him. England #1. Buys Claudio Bravo. Finishes 5th. Bravo drops a number of clangers. Sorry, it's not working. Goes and gets Ederson. If Ederson had failed, they would have bought someone else. He would have carried on until they got it right. And that's the difference with United and with City. Those are the levels. Those are the levels. So There you go. Depressing shit, man. I'm well upset, actually.
Yeah, it's just one of those things where
it's just Liverpool, though, isn't it? Losing 5-0 to Liverpool. It's horrible.
You run out of things to say eventually.
Yeah, we do. So, shall we wrap it up there, man?
Yeah.
All right, awesome. Thanks a lot, Ryan.
It's one of those it's one of those chats where because we're chatting about it and I'm trying to keep an eye on news because I'm just expecting news to break at any moment. So
Ollie's been sacked.
One eye on the chat, and the other eye on trending news. So
yeah. All right, cool,
I don't know,
man.
I do think the writing's on the wall. I mean, it is it's like I say, I'm not going to join some camp. I'm also not going to disrespect such a club legend either. And I think a lot of the criticism of Ollie and pictures of him as a clown and all the sorts of shit that are coming from so-called United fans is disgusting. But I do think, there's 2 ways of one way of looking at it is, he deserves the respect, and I'm never going to, join the choruses of calling for him to be sacked. But on the other side, I think if you look at it objectively, the situation, I think all of the indications are that that's where we're heading. I mean, even if it doesn't happen this week, I think the doubt is in the minds of the owners. The seeds have been sown by the players that they're losing faith in him, and I think once that happens, especially when you've got a player like Ronaldo in your team, Ronaldo didn't come to United to finish 4th. He came to United to win trophies. It's Ronaldo. If United doesn't win the Golden Boot this season,
he finished 4th for Juve last season. So
no, but he won the Golden Boot I suppose. Yeah, he won a cup though, didn't he? He won a cup with Juve last season. Yeah, I think so. I don't think he was trophyless, but I might be wrong. Maybe they were. Oh, I don't know. Yeah, it's grim times. It feels worse than it did when Mourinho went because it's Solskjaer. So,
but I don't know what to say.
We'll see. No doubt we'll have another podcast when when the axe inevitably is swung. So
when the axe has fallen.
Yeah.
All right, man. We'll wrap it up there. Cheers for joining the channel. Please subscribe to In the Red. Please subscribe to Shaf Man TV. Thanks for joining us. If you've lasted probably an hour and 20 minutes right to the end, if you can like and share the video, it helps.
We went on a bit.
Yeah, we went on a bit.
Sorry about that.
It's basic therapy. It's not even like it's not even a football podcast. It's just therapy.
Yeah, I was watching someone doing a podcast yesterday, and they were talking about after the Liverpool game, and someone commented into their channel and was like, "Really happy that you're doing this, guys. Can't be in it on my own at the moment. I'm glad we're all dealing with it together." And it was like the podcast they were putting out as a response to the Liverpool game ended up being like a group therapy session for a lot of United fans.
Exactly. All right, man. Well. Cool. Have a top day. Thanks a lot for joining us, and we appreciate your time. Please like and share the video to help us get boosted on the YouTube algorithm, an algorithm that we're all at the behest of. Take care. Thank you.
Cheers. Thanks.
Thank you.